From 1954 to 1962, Algeria was the scene of a long and deadly war for independence. After 150 years of colonization, the Algerians finally wanted to be masters at home. France wanted to defend what it considered as the jewel of its colonial empire. The Marquisards, first road-cutter fellahs, became mujahidins, then martyrs of the revolution. They usually hid their rear base in the mountains. As for the Europeans, they lived mostly in cities, while the settlers were cultivating fertile plains. The professional soldiers in the French army were mostly assigned to so-called mopping up or reprisals. They offered a strong quota of young recruits officially forwarded to maintain order within the framework of a compulsory military service of 28 months. In 1954, the contingent was 50,000 men. In 1962, it had passed to 1,350,000 men. At the end of 1958, reaching the mandatory age of 21, I tried to escape this war by obtaining an army stay for an internship in Canada. But it only delayed the deadline, and in 1960, I had to go. Thus, I was assigned for 2 years at 334 Military Station, a redoubt of 32 soldiers surrounded by barbed wire at the top of a hill of 334 meters of altitude. Down in the Ouatzeb Valley, 1,000 farmers had to leave their mountain farms to relocate themselves in Rouaba, a village called Regrouping, itself clearly fenced. They were there to defend themselves with hunting shotguns. I was officially cannoneer. I had to participate in some operations in the Ouatzeb Valley. I set up guard for 365 nights, but every morning I walked alone down to school in the village, an invaluable privilege that my captain had delegated to me. What an unbelievable opportunity! Making this miserable wood cabin, dried mud and thatched roof a haven of peace in the middle of the war for 25 innocent and miserable children, and giving them rudiments of knowledge, modest but essential, in the hope that one day they can take advantage of them to build a better life. And then the events accelerated. A referendum was held. The Independence Party won. Reactionary movements still caused several deaths and above all precipitated the departure of all Europeans, or almost all Europeans. Me, my 28 service months were over. I went back to France. The morale of the population was there at zero. The mood was unbearable. 1.5 million European people, called Blackfeet, came out of Algeria to resettle in France. It wasn't time for me to start a career there. That's when I decided to go back to Canada. In Canada, I wanted to forget. Following my new vocation discovered in Rouaba, I entered the education field. I started a family. Then I undertook a career in the realm of people living with disabilities. I was far from Rouaba. Meanwhile, Algeria organized itself slowly under the auspices of a government from the War of Independence. It took almost 30 years to allow the people to vote. The first round of the 1991 election was won by the Islamic Salvation Front, FIS, a group of movements wishing to establish an Islamic Republic in Algeria. Saying this, the army pushed the president to resign, the electoral process was interrupted and the FIS activists were imprisoned. Now ensued a long and bloody civil war, the Black Decade, during which the Algerian people were again caught up between the fires of the Islamists and the regular army. This conflict caused more than 60,000 dead, up to 150,000 according to some, with thousands of missing persons, 1 million displaced persons, and tens of thousands of exiles. I returned to Canada, where I first attempted to forget. This sad news reminded me of other equally dramatic things. I managed to untie it for the past 50 years. But the past always ends up catching up to us. In 2012, the world remembered when Algeria celebrated the 50th anniversary of its independence. It was for me a reminder, and the clicking finally came in my head. My kids! What has become of my students? But these dusty slides I kept hidden for so long, they are filled with valuable memories that these people would probably like to own. I worked for 6 months to clean these photos, to digitize them. I also had maintained several drawings of my students. I digitized them too. I added music from the time, and I made a 45-minute DVD. Then I had to find my students so that I could give them back this childhood that had been stolen from them. How do I do it? Rouaba, this clustered village, was it still there? The nearest municipality was Mouzaya. I wrote to the mayor. I sent him a list of my students I had retained and some photos. And 2 months later, my phone rang out, a voice exploding. My master! I found my master! It was Mustafa Abessarabi. Mustafa relayed the contact to Ali Ammar, then Kadour, then Miloud, then Abdakab El Qassem, then Mohamed Jamoun. They were there, alive, who were still waiting for me after 50 years. I sent them my DVDs. They made over 1,000 copies that circulated across Algeria. For sure, my testimony was expected, and I was just targeting. As early as 2012, Ali Ammar had invited me, but I unfortunately could not get back to Algeria then. But later, in 2018, after 56 years, I finally left.
Salut Mohamed.
Comment allez? Ça va?
Salut.
Salut. Ça va bien?
It's more than midnight when I get to Algiers airport. Here they are, Miloud Ammar and Mohamed Jamoun, the 2 friends I planned this trip with. They'll be my drivers, interpreters, and bodyguards. Miloud is a former manager in the steel industry, and Mohamed was a chief of staff in the Algerian army. All my former students have left Rouaba, but they did not go far. I found almost all the boys. The girls got married under other names. In all my states, I filmed a little, and I'm delivering you my pictures. At Cadeau's, in his furniture store.
C'est pas vrai.
Kadour has studied the Quran assiduously, and he is a respected imam in his community. So here's my first present, personal and touching, from a student to his master, a Quran. Jalul met in Chifa once wrote to me, I've always dreamed that Daniel, our master of the school, would come back one day and we would talk with him. Well, here I am, Jalul. Let us talk. Wycliffe dedicated this psalm to thank me on behalf of the 1960 to 1962 Algerian children from rural areas. He went to Rouaba, where he cut for me the nicest branch from an old olive tree to make this beautiful pilgrim stick. Rouaba sang in my ear a French song that I had forgotten. Then we all remembered this one, we the merry children from 334.
Tu te souviens? Nous les joyeux enfants de 334, nous les joyeux enfants de 334, nous lançons dans le vent nos joyeux cris, nos joyeux chants, nous lançons dans le vent nos plus joyeux accents.
Khadija, the only girl I could meet, raised 6 children. Wycliffe and his family, Wycliffe and his young neighbors. Ali Amar became a bricklayer. He built his house with a floor for each daughter. The meal was gorgeous.
Il va vous inviter, on va prendre des couscous. Lui, il le prépare mieux que moi.
Mustafa Abbas Rabi cooks a good couscous, but he never goes back to Rouaba anymore.
Non, pas, je crois pas.
Non,
Non, non, non.
tu connais plus personne au village?
Non, je le connais, mais je ne peux pas.
Non.
C'est fini, c'est fini.
Well, we are going to Rouaba. Today it is Nawa, a big brick and cement village. High school is no longer here. I had 2 trees, a bare trunk remains. Spring has been captured. On the road to post 334, we find the exact location where I lost a friend driving his Jeep 56 years ago. The tower was rebuilt for the civil guard. The barracks have been replaced by containers. Fortunately, the village lost its barbed wire, but also the picturesque charm of the meshtas. More comfort, perhaps, but the ugliness of brick and concrete buildings that will never be truly completed. The countryside looks greener, but we are in April. The road to 1002 military post is just a trail now. A shepherd leaves his sheep and comes up to join us. Finally, the Wetsept Valley remains immutable and the sun will go down every night. Before taking our grand tour, Mustafa and Milud show me their domain. Algiers the White was founded in the 1st century as a Phoenician counter in Berber country. Today, the first city of the Maghreb has more than 8 million inhabitants. The sanctuary of the Martyrs of Independence includes a crypt, an amphitheater, and an underground museum.
والبلود اللامعات الخافقات في الجبال العاليات الراسيات نحن خرنا حياة أو ممات وعقدنا العزم أن تحيا الجزائر تشهد 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 دارنا بالحرب قمنا لم تكن تسرق
The botanical garden, 13 acres.
البارود وزنا وعزفنا نغمة الرشاش لحنا وعقدنا العزم أن تحيا الجزائر فاشهدوا فاشهدوا.
We will later visit the Kasbah and the port of Algiers. Tonight we will just follow the Great Mosque to meet the family of Mohammed, his sons Jamal and Hamza and his wife Miss Hauda. Back to El Afroun, where Miloud wants to show me some trees. They are the eucalyptus of the Fortin farm when I set up Guad in 1961. In 2013, the farm was replaced by a university with 25,000 students. Just a glimpse towards Shreya, the Shifa Gorge, the Muzaya Peak, and the Wetsept Valley. I was entertained like a prince within Miloud's family. Rafik, the mathematician, Rafika, the future French professor. As her grandfather was killed by the French army, she chose me as a grandpa. A first banquet with seafood, a present from Abla, the oldest daughter. A second family banquet with Abla and Mohammed, together with their spouses and grandson. Fatiha contributes to the family income by operating a specialized sewing and embroidery workshop. With a small team of workers, she makes essentially marriage clothing, richly decorated according to the Algerian tradition.
بالك يدون الامريكان قاعد هذاك عند الدفلات كمان حسن عايشين في الامريكان الدوري العرب هذا شبعانين غيره
غير يتخبوا
مليح هكذا يبغى يشوف كيف تخدموا ثاني الديفرونس
الكراكو
دير حتى غرزيبي
فوالا
طوني البرا مش
فوالا travail de
Je vais prendre les détails. Là. C'est beau.
Oui, travail.
One of the workers is getting married. This is the fishing harbor of Bu Aroun. Miloud improves his retirement income as a canvasser in the field of repair of ship's equipment. He takes his orders from fishermen, transmits them to the foundry workshops, makes the part finished, then hangs them over to the ship owners. He made his niche. He has further expanded his social network by including the butchers, bakers, fish counters, and the fabric suppliers needed at the Fatiha workshop. A little foundry in Mokrani. Bu Ismail, a mechanical manufacturing workshop of gables and gears. Everyone has lunch around a crate of sea urchins just brought in by a diver of the team. Mohammed, the fabric provider for Fatiha. Ali or Rabbi Salem comes to join the terrace of the restaurant Le Lamparo on the port of Bu Haroun.
ونعيد لك مجرابية والقلب واش غبنو ونعيد لك مجرابية والقلب واش غبنو قولوا شيلة العيادي والليل ورمها.
Small workshop and stop at the butcher in Marengo.
الولف كيف سهل والفرق ما قدرت عنه الولف كيف سهل.
In Hadjut, Amira Machine Shop. Stopping at the fish and fruit and vegetable store.
من صغر
Another larger workshop, Hamid Brand Shop.
وحبك اسكن سكاني واليوم
With Mohammed Jaman, we now turn to the Royal Mausoleum of Mauritania, nicknamed Grave of the Christian.
جميع السرار الياباني أشحال.
It is a huge stone tumulus near the village of Sidi Rached, not far from Tipasa.
قهرت عياني.
The cylindrical part has 60 columns with Ionic capitals. It has 4 false gates at cardinal points. The true entry, now condemned, is located in the eastern foundation. The construction date and the function of the monument are uncertain. It was reportedly built by King Juba and Queen Cleopatra Selene, who reigned from the year 25 before Christ to the year 23, clearly before the Roman rule. The monument dominates the Mitidja plain on a ridge of the Sahel Hills.
يا ويح اللي عاداني وبلا سباب غير جفاني من بعد سعيت وسعاني ضحيت كي تطير الحاصل ما عرفت باب سجنه.
The beach and the Golden Horn Hotel complex near Tipaza.
من لا يهواني
سلي همومك عيد العشية ما تدري باش ياتيك الصباح.
40 miles west of Algiers, Tipaza is an important tourist center. Today a fishing and recreational facility, the city and its region have always been very popular in the antique world. Many Punic, Roman, Christian and African remains attest to the richness of the history of this colony. The Phoenicians opened a trading post around the 5th century before Christ. At the time of King Juba II, under the influence of Carthage, it was one of the outbreaks of Greco-Roman culture in North Africa. After the Third Punic War and the Carthage taking in 146 before Christ, the Romans annexed Mauritania, the present Maghreb. The Mediterranean became for the Romans Mare Nostrum, our sea, as a large lake in the center of the Roman Empire. The city of Tipasa then knows its peak towards the end of the 2nd century, with a population of 20,000 inhabitants. It will nevertheless be destroyed by the Vandals in the year 430. Explored as early as 1891, the Tipasa site has not been fully released. Much of the ancient city is still under the sediments. Leaving the edge of the wall of the Roman ruins of Tipasa, the beaches of Chenua are spread within a curve of several miles. The inhabitants of the region speak Chenui, a local language variant of the Berber language. In El Hamdania, Algeria and China jointly construct a major port of the Silk Road, a port of transshipment between China and the coast of Africa and South America.
وانا صبرت لحد فادني بمسالة.
These aqueduct ruins indicate the approach of another major Roman city, Caesarea.
وإلى صبر اليتيم اللي مربي على الهانا.
It is now the harbor of Cherchell, which was in antiquity one of the most important cities in North Africa. It was the capital of the Roman province of Mauritania, extending to the Moroccan shores of the Atlantic. Most ruins are located outside, but there are still some in the modern city. Cherchell was the seat of a French school of officers. It now forms the frameworks of the Algerian army. Let us visit the new Cherchell Museum. The findings made in Cherchell for a century are impressive. The city now has two well-equipped museums. In addition, many of the treasures found here are today in the world's large museums, including the Museum of Antiques in Algiers and the Louvre in Paris. All kinds of archaeological elements are exposed here, both inside and outside the building, inviting the visitor to meditate on the long and rich history of the premises.
لا تكون في الزمن سروب امشي على وقتك وحالو لا تقلق والصبر مطلوب وجميع من صبره نالو لا تكون في الزمن زروب وشي على وقتك وحالو لا تقلق والصبر مطلوب وجميع من صبره نالو كون مربس عمرك لا.
This new museum was built in 1981 with the initial vocation of sheltering the various mosaic pavements from the excavations of the 1960s.
كل عضلة فيها خير جعلها تمثيل في قولك كل شي في يد القدير الصبر حتى يجيك نصيبك.
Blida, 30 miles south of Algiers, means little city. Nicknamed the City of Roses, it was founded in the 16th century to accommodate Andalusian migrants. During the French colonization, it was a city of garrison. Since independence, it has hosted a rural migration, going from 60,000 inhabitants in 1962 to over 300,000 today.
كون مدرب لجميع الحروب تتغلب على تهوالو البحر مهو المقلوب ساعة في مواج والغريق تنجالو كون مدرب لجميع الحروب لا تتغلب على تهوالو احفظ ما قالوه للتفكير بالمهل.
In the Shifa Pass, south of Blida, the Monkey's Brook restaurant is home of a mini zoo, and we can see maggot monkeys or macaques.
كل عضلة فيها خير جعلها تمثيل في قولك كل شي في يد القدير الصبر حتى يجيك نصيبك الصبر حتى يجيك نصيبك كل عضلة فيها خير جعلها تمثيل في قولك كل كل شي في يد القدير الصبر حتى يجيك نصيبك الصبر حتى يجيك نصيبك
The White Casbah. That's what attracted my gaze when I arrived in Algiers by boat in 1960. On the invitation of Adel Ammar, nephew of Milud, we went to visit it in organized group. The guide, Habib Lamri, made a visit in French just because I was there. The Casbah is the Medina, the old city in the city. In antiquity, it was first a Punic harbor, then Berber, then Roman. Algiers has always been a cosmopolitan city. People came from everywhere and lived in harmony. Corsicans, Spanish, Italians, French. But the Algerian War ended that. Everyone took his sides.
Et ce n'est que quand il y a eu la guerre d'Algérie qu'il y a eu un fragment. Chacun a pris son bord.
It is a jumble of houses facing the sea along a steep slope. The streets are so narrow and so entangled that there are absolutely no cars. Deliveries and trash collection are still made on the back of donkeys. In the Casbah, houses are built one against each other. During an earthquake, the Casbah can move, but it does not break.
Il faut que vous sachiez une chose, c'est que presque tous les chercheurs et les historiens qui ont essayé de lui donner une datation.
Historians are unable to put a dating on such a city. The Spaniards tried to counter pirate activity that had developed in the Middle Ages, but the Barbaroux brothers expelled them in 1529. The Spaniards had cannons holding the port. Every time the Algerians wanted to go to sea to look for goods, they had to pay a toll. Finally, Barbaroux gave the Spaniards an ultimatum of 8 days and they left. This is how the city became the main basis of piracy in the Western Mediterranean. The pirates were Italian, Calabrese, Dutch. To be accepted, they converted to Islam, married Algerian women, built mosques, and shared what they brought back in their boats.
Lui aussi, quand il a été arrêté, lui aussi il a construit une mosquée. Nous avons Jensens, c'était un Hollandais. Quand lui aussi il a été arrêté, les Français, حنا في بلادو يعيطوا له Jensens. Les Français l'appellent Johnson. حنا نعيطوا له مراد رايس, Bir Mourad Rais. Vous voyez, tout ça c'était des pirates d'antan qui se sont convertis à l'islam et poussés pour cela que je vous ai dit, ils ont épousé des Algériens.
Algiers citadel was built only in the 16th century, and the Algiers Days did not settle there before 1817. In 1800, the Dey had advanced strong sums to Napoleon to supply his troops for his Egyptian campaign. In 1827, the Dey had not yet been repaid by France. He wrote 3 amicable letters to King Charles X, and on April the 30th, he received the Council of France to hear the answers.
Nous remettre ce qu'on vous a prêté contre votre guerre.
At a diplomatic reception for Eid el-Kebir, Dey Hussein asked the French consul whether he was going to be reimbursed by France. The consul, arrogant, answered in a very impolite manner.
C'est pour représenter la France.
The Dey told him that it was not a way to represent France and asked him to come out.
Répondre pour la France. Alors, Khalou, moi je vous ai invité pour la fête du Bagram. Le Bagram, c'est Eid el-Kibir, Eid al-Tadhiya. Les Turcs, ils appellent ça le Bagram. Nous, on appelle ça la fête du sacrifice, Eid el-Kibir. Alors, je vous ai invité, comme tous les autres ambassadeurs, les autres consuls, pour que vous veniez assister avec nous à cette fête. Mais là, je vois que vous répondez d'une façon non polie, alors sortez d'ici. Quand tu lui as fait le geste adaïtique, le consul, il a fait ça, c'est là où il a frappé avec son chasse-mouche, et non avec un éventail.
That's when the consul hit the Dey with his fly swatter and not with a fan. This dismissal of the consul then served as an excuse for laying siege to Algiers and for the conquest of Algeria by France. It's the famous trick of the fan. The Kasbah occupied a central role in the Algerian Independence War 120 years later, serving as a bastion for the Independence Party. From 1956, Algerian nationalist leaders were established in the Kasbah, which became the main place of the Battle of Algiers in 1957. The paratroopers of General Massu won the battle. The streets were closed with barbed wires. Youssef Saadi, the main messenger of the FLN, was captured in September 1957, and in October the shelter of Ali Lapointe is destroyed. We must be very proud of our fighters. They gave the best of themselves. At the independence of Algeria, the Kasbah is experiencing an exodus of population to the European apartments of neighboring quarters. Yet the houses of the old Kasbah keep a certain charm. The family life lies around the central patio, and each house has a terrace with a splendid view over the sea.
اللي قلبه يهواكم جودوا عني مرضى يا جيراني برضاكم.
During the decade of terrorism in the 90s, the Kasbah became a lair of Islamist militants. The neighborhood is again marked by attacks and insecurity. The restoration plans are successfully reaching, but there is a lack of political will and global vision. The Kasbah quickly becomes a crowded and overcrowded space, but remains a collective memory. UNESCO, local associations and inhabitants are involved in preserving the premises, their restoration, and the animation of social life. We are coming to the lower Kasbah. Once it was going to the sea, but the French demolished a large part of it. Then they built a beautiful seafront with its architecture in arcades.
وكثر تأبي وشقايا بهواكم سادي خاب راني نكايد في محاني شرع الله يا الحباب معاكم يا جيراني شرع الله يا الحباب معاكم يا عرفاني
With the construction of the new European quarters, the Kasbah becomes a residual and unstable subspace while keeping spaces of sociability such as mosques, cafes, squares and hammams. This man reopened the old coffee house where Albert Camus came so often. The old Café des Sports in the memory of Marcel Cerdan, the boxer. Ketchawa Mosque, founded in 1436, served as cathedral during colonization. Excavations have been undertaken to update an old Ottoman quarter. We now arrive on the port, where we will take a boat to visit the Club Espadon restaurant.
على اللوحة
Ah, ça c'est pittoresque.
Ils vont partir en Italie.
Ouais, des réfugiés.
Hein? Les réfugiés.
Ils vont faire naufrage.
Hey, les réfugiés.
Ils vont faire naufrage à Lampedusa, là. C'est à droite, hein, le restaurant. Beau. Et voilà.
جوعني بينيري والزول فوق دماغي لقيتو كيف نرشيري تمنيت نعيش في بلادي طلع ونبني سواسي والله غالب الغربة داتني ونولي ليك يا بلادي لقيتو بلادي نبغيك لقيتو بلادي نبغيك لقيتو عايش عمرو فيك لقيتو نموت عليك الوطن يلي برجالك كامنتي يا بلادي.
We are now going south, towards the south of the north, just that, towards Jalfa and Gardaya. We are going through the Chifa Pass, which cuts the Atlas Mountains. The public roadworks are gigantic. This motorway, which is under construction, will finally cross the Sahara Desert and reach Niger, a north-south axis more than 1,500 miles long. We pass Medea with a population of 140,000 at 3,000 feet of altitude. Formerly, the desert started here. It is the arid zone of uplands where the rocky soil does not retain the winter and spring rainwater. We are close to Jalfa. Ali should meet us before the city. Ali Orabi Salem was once my youngest student in Rabat. He was about 9 years old when I left. 56 years later, it is a great joy to meet again. A great pleasure also for my two pupils, Milud and Ali, to roll back on the ground. The rocks of Jalfa replace the sand of Tipasa. A quick tour of Djelfa, 300,000 people, a major transit center, 200 miles south of Algiers. Ali, who I only taught how to read, write and count, has made his career in Algerian courts and finished as head clerk at the court of Djelfa. Today, retired, he is still acting as a mediator. Tonight, we share quite a feast, the leg of a running lamb. Now we will drive towards Gardaya, 200 miles towards the south. But before that, Ali will show us the country home he is building. It's a large piece of land, arid originally, but he started irrigating and gradually cultivating. First of all, fruit trees, then cereals. The road will be long, so I'm going to talk to you a little more about Ali and his wife Fatiha, who have the merit of having raised 7 children, 2 girls and 5 boys. The word merit is weak, given the results that are edifying. A lawyer, a dentist surgeon, an urban planner, a manager in insurance, a head of department in town planning, a lawyer at the Court of Justice in Algiers. The youngest one just completed a doctorate in political science. Now Mohammed tries to recite a short French poem he learned 56 years ago.
Le petit lapin.
Le petit lapin.
Le petit lapin. Le petit lapin.
In their smoky igloos, carefully closed, the brave little Eskimos are drinking their fish oil. Outside we hear the wind crying, the bad white bears growl with their teeth grinding.
Bien soigneusement fermés, les braves petits lapins boivent l'huile de poisson. Dehors, on entend le vent pleurer, les méchants ours blancs grondent en grinçant des dents.
This is all out of context.
Fumés, bien soigneusement fermés, les braves petits lapins boivent l'huile de poisson.
Magnifique.
We are in the desert now, at the gates of the Sahara. The sand brought by the winds tends to accumulate on the side of the road. It's kind of like Quebec with snow. We are close to Gardaya. Gardaya, 400 miles south of Algiers, by its history and architecture, is part of the UNESCO heritage. It is a Xal, a particular type of walled city. Capital of the Mzab Valley, its name means mountainous depression. Situated in the desert region, it can nevertheless be seriously flooded. Two ethnic groups live together here, the Sunnite Chambas and the Ibadite Mozabites. Their cohabitation is sometimes difficult. Clashes happen in 85, 91, 2004. In 2015, at least 22 people died and several hundreds were injured.
Même village, il pourrait y avoir.
There could be 2 villages.
Il n'y a pas de place pour eux.
Ben oui, il y a de la place.
Oh yes, there is a lot of room.
Place, moi.
Every day is a market day in Gardaya.
C'est le cœur de la cité, ça. C'est le cœur de la ville, ça.
Oui.
Hein?
Oui.
Normal.
Il y a Marrakech.
Ah, je connais Marrakech, j'ai
Voilà,
vu.
c'est
ouais.
comme ça.
And now we leave Ali and we drive towards the northeast. Once arid, the highlands have become the agricultural area which allows the growing population of Algeria to be fed. The new energy resources of the country, oil and natural gas, provide the electricity needed to pump from the water table, which allows the irrigation of vast lands. Here is Bousahada, the city of happiness, located on a thriving palm grove. It is a former stage of caravan trade and a halt for the nomads of transhumance. An insurrection against France in 1849 was brutally crushed by the Zouaves and ended with a horrendous slaughter. The city has lived well in tourism during the colonization, but it has declined strongly since then. Shortly before Biskra, the palm grove of Tolga has more than 500,000 palm trees. Their fruit, the famous Diglet Noor dates, are exported the world over. we had an appointment at Biskra with a friend of a friend of a friend who wanted to show us the marvel of the region, the goofy balconies. It's not far, it's direct, but we only got there at the nightfall. In the Ores Massif, the Goofy Canyon is a remarkable site that was dug by the Abiod River. The gorges are made of metamorphic and sedimentary rocks. At the base, along the river, stretches an oasis of fruit and palm trees. Balconies are terraces cut into the rock 4 centuries ago to retain villages now uninhabited. It includes troglodytic houses and buildings of several floors, the number of rooms corresponding to the number of families that lived there. The site has been classified as a World Heritage Site since 1928.
On l'a trouvé!
Back at the hotel in Biskra, the arrow indicates the direction of Mecca. In the morning, the local products were spread out, dates and date honey. We are going to cross the Alcantara narrow pass. Timgad, the North African Pompeii. Here we entered the archaeological park by some sort of back door. First of all, a cluster of brick ruins. It is the Great Northern Thermae, a building that is imposing, but only the substructures remain. Then suddenly we discover a Roman town with a surface area of over 200 acres, ranked to the World Heritage of the UNESCO in 1982. This town was founded by Emperor Trajan in the year 100 for the pensioners of the Roman legions. It was destroyed by the Berbers in 535, rebuilt by the Byzantines in 539, then the walls were razed by the Vandals in 429. It was then covered by the sands for 15 centuries. It is 3,000 feet high. The site is so important and so exceptional that a full visit would take several days. The ruins were reported for the first time in 1765. Only the highest buildings emerged. The excavations were undertaken by France in the 1880s. It was a city of veterans. The population is estimated at 15,000 people in the early 3rd century after the construction of all major structures in the city. The initial city plan is perfectly quadrangular and geometrical, and Timgad is often cited as an example of a Roman city. The main route, Decumanus Maximus, leads to the monumental gate of the west entrance called Trajan's Arch. The large central opening, 6 yards high, was reserved for vehicles. Pedestrians were circulating around the side openings. The road defied the wear of time through its oblique paving, which covered a sewer. Some inscriptions have been erased and changed. the city had a forum, a theater, a large market, a temple of Jupiter, and a capitol. The capitol was the largest monument in Timgad, but it was the one which suffered the most from the ravage of time. The capitals at the top of the columns had the size of a standing man. Excavations of Timgad have revealed the existence of several Christian monuments, chapels, baptistries, oratories, and a monastery. After the appearance of Christianity, Timgad was even a cathedral town. Bishop Novatus took part in the Carthago Council in 256.
وحنا صدينا والبلادي وبعيدة البلادي وبعيدة والصبر وثمني وجوجنا مليون
The great south termini are well decorated, but their basement is well preserved. There were pools, sports rooms, massage rooms, library, and reception rooms.
خلقي ويا تفرق يدقلا ويا الصندق ذواق سعايا بالفراق ذواق سعايا بالفراق وصبر وثمنني وجوج انا مليون
At the origin, the theater had a diameter of 63 yards and a capacity of 4,000 seats.
خلقي ويا تفرق يدقلا ويا الصندق ذواق سعايا بالفراق ذواق سعايا بالفراق وصبر وثمنيني وجوج انا مليون.
In the temple of the genius of the colony, we find dedications to Jupiter, Junon, and Minerva. The floor of the forum was a giant sundial. The public latrines of the forum had 25 seats separated by dolphin-shaped armrests. There was a drain water drawer for fecal materials, but urine was harvested separately for laundering the men's white togas. we were unable to visit the museum, mainly maintaining mosaics, pottery and daily use objects. But the courtyard hosts an interesting epigraphic garden. There are beautiful memorial monuments. Vertical stones presented the image of the person or his name and titles. Horizontal squads were used to receive or just illustrate offerings. The capital of Numidia 300 years before Christ, Constantine became a Roman city and was named to honor Emperor Constantine. The city extends to 1,500 feet of altitude on a rocky plateau that is cut by the deep gorges of the Roman River. With 500,000 people, it's the capital of eastern Algeria. It's the city of suspension bridges, also called City of Eagles. A network of cableways links the different sectors. There are 100 mosques. The Great Mosque and Medresa Sheikh Abdelhamid Medbadis includes a library, a Quranic school, and a medical center.
بركي خمم بركي بركي غدمم بركي عتا بريد الناك جاي عتا بريد الناك جاي اختاي بعداي جاي اختاي.
We continue our road towards Gelma. We cross a region of beautiful green valleys with several hot springs. Hammam Meskutin was closed, but somebody half opened the doors for us. This spring delivers 25,000 gallons of water per minute. At 206 degrees Fahrenheit, these are the hottest waters after the geysers of Iceland. During the millennia, the waters left tons of colorful limestone. It constitutes a majestic cascade. Below the waterfall, the landscape is filled with smaller calcareous formations in cones. These are former hot water sources, some of which are still active.
Mets ta main, recommence, je peux pas. Ah non, je peux pas.
يخلط رمضانا يرني رمضانا ونتزايد تراجع ونتزايد تراجع
The second president of the Algerian Republic, Ouari Boumediene, was born very close to here, and this is a nice way to remember a local celebrity. The city of Guelma is only 100 miles from the Tunisian border. The very fertile region was inhabited from the prehistory and developed in the Roman times. A long resistance to the French colonial empire was paid a high price on May 8, 1945, when the sub-prefect made the army shoot a nationalist demonstration that celebrated the end of the war and the victory against Nazism. A short night at Guelma and then quickly back to the country. Our friends are waiting for us. At Cadeau's place in the family intimacy.
Ali.
Oui.
Ali, what is your best memory of our school?
34.
Ouais.
Le jour que...
The day you hit me on my fingers.
Arrive, t'as pu recommencer.
Ça y est, voilà.
Voilà. Et Mouscadour, ton meilleur souvenir, toi.
And you, Cadou?
Cette année, elle m'a envoyé chez nous un ballon foot.
Un ballon de football.
Or the day you brought from France a real soccer ball.
Oui.
Quand j'étais revenu. Hein?
Yes, my best memory. Unforgettable.
C'est tellement souvenir.
Inoubliable, ça.
Ouais, il va me demander quelque chose, lui.
Ben oui.
Mon meilleur souvenir,
oui.
C'est que j'ai oublié que vous
Me? I forgot you kicked my fingers.
Je me souviens.
T'as oublié que je l'ai fait.
Et le meilleur...
Là, ça veut...
Actually, you forgot why. So do I.
Bonjour. Comment tu t'appelles?
What's your name?
Omar.
Allez, Omar.
Ali Omar. Non, c'est le grand-père qui est là?
This is Grandpa Cadou.
Ah,
Côté de la mère, côté du père.
ah oui.
Here are the two grandfathers, on the side of the papa and on the side of the mother.
Qui a épousé ta fille?
Oui. Voilà.
Extra.
And you are a good boy, for sure.
C'est sûr. Et vous, vous n'avez aucun souvenir?
You never attended our school.
Moi, non.
Non. Alors, mais quel est votre meilleur souvenir de France?
You have worked a long time in France. What is your best memory of France then?
Quand c'est année, j'ai vu qu'il y a en France.
I worked very hard, and my best memory is to have returned to the country healthy. Well, it's also my best memory of Algeria. I have returned to France in good health.
Et votre meilleur souvenir d'Algérie? C'est l'indépendance?
And your best memory in Algeria, besides the tea?
J'oublie
Oh, voilà le thé.
mon premier souvenir.
The first day I saw the Algerian flag. It's just engraved in my memory.
Où j'ai vu le drapeau algérien. Ça m'a resté gravé dans la mémoire.
Then the group meets for the last time in Mouzaya, at the home of our friend Ali El Jalfawi. Here, no speeches, no superfluous words. Everything comes from the heart. We found each other, we buckled the buckle, our soul is in peace, and we are happy. In 1962, I could not even say farewell to you. The soldiers had packed in the middle of the night. At 9 a.m. we definitely left post 334 without stopping in the village, without stopping me at my school to say goodbye.
يا النايم جاني خبرك ما صرالك أسراري
The teacher finally came back. He was welcomed with joy in his students' homes. He can therefore go back to the Salle in peace.
Les enfants font une farandole et le vieux maître est tout ému. Demain, il va quitter sa chère école. Sur cette estrade, il ne montera plus. Adieu, monsieur le professeur. On ne vous oubliera jamais.